All right, guys. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna jump right into it for today because we got a lot of stuff to do. So what we got right here is a picture of a cat. I did it in 3 seconds. It's adorable. Cat. All right, here we go. So there are 2 different groups of you right now, right? There are the people that are doing kind of the 2.5D relief that we talked about before, and then there are the people that are doing the 3D model. You know who you are. I had gone through last night and printed out your templates if you emailed them to me, so you have them if you're doing the 3D stuff. If you don't and you are doing the 3D stuff, I'll talk to you in a second. Don't worry about that. So we've got relief, kind of thinking about things as they kind of build up and stack, and then we've got our 3D. Again, same basic idea. You can see I just hot glued the crap out of this guy. But you can see how I just went through, cut out each individual shape using the Exacto Blade, numbered it. Don't worry about your numbers or anything if they show, who cares. But you just numbered it, and then I just went through and stacked them up, just like a big old puzzle or something, right? Like a pyramid. And whenever you're all done, you've hot glued everything together, you'll end up with this kind of 3-dimensional model. And or you'll end up with this cool relief. If you're doing the relief, you will be painting yours. We're just going to use tempera paint. I'll tell you right now, paint it when you're all done cutting out your pieces. So do your pieces first, and then worry about painting them, and then glue them together. Do them in that order. If you try to glue them and then paint them, you're going to end up with weird cracks around the seams and stuff, like up in here. So you want to paint them as separate pieces. But if you paint them as you go, you're just going to end up cutting out a piece, painting, cutting out a piece, painting. It's too much. So you cut out all your pieces at once, you paint all at once, you glue all at once. Cool? All right, so moving on. So I've got my adorable kitty cat here, right? And let's say I want to make this gato into a relief, right? So I'm going to go through and I'm going to think to myself about what the heck I want relieved. And that's kind of what we did yesterday for those guys working with a relief picture, right? So maybe you went through and you said, okay, I want, all of this right here, her little muzzle. I want that all to be one piece. Maybe I want this mouth right here to be another piece. Maybe the head is one whole big piece. Maybe the ears are there. And maybe there's one big background piece as well. Right? So I've in essence got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces. Okay? So you've gone through, you've done this already, and I'm assuming you guys did this yesterday if you're working on the relief picture. So you've gone through, you've kind of broken it down. Now here's the big kicker. Whenever you're doing this, think about it almost like, same thing with our 3D piece, right? Think about it like a pyramid, right? So each piece will encompass the last. So we're not like cutting out a piece, like there's not going to be a hole where the muzzle will go, because then everything will just flatten out again, right? We want things to be pushed on top of. So as I'm cutting out, for example, so I'll do one piece that is literally just a big old square, the end, right? That'll be number 1. Then I'll do the ears, but when I do the ears, and this is kind of the big kicker, right? When I do the ears, I'm cutting out this ear shape, but I'm also cutting out the shape with anything on top of it. So even though it's just the ear shape, I'm going to cut out the entire head as well, and that whole outline is number 2. Okay? Then number 3 is just the circle. Number 4 is the mouth and the muzzle. That's number 4. And then number 5 is just the muzzle. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah? Cool. And that way, literally, when you stack things on top, they all are being kind of risen up. Cool? Again, it's pretty straightforward, but I still want to make sure everyone knows. All right, so if you are doing the relief, the next step you're going to want to think about is grabbing some cardboard. This is cardboard. You're going to grab some cardboard, and you're going to do a carbon transfer. And if you're doing the 3D, you'll do a carbon transfer as well. Just to revitalize your brains a little bit, carbon transfer, you simply grab a pencil, and you give it some schmutz on the back. And you're going to want to kind of go in different directions and get it really chalky. In essence, we're doing like a pencil stamp, and we've done this before. But you kind of get it all up in there. And you're kind of covering over where your marker lines are, or your pencil lines, whatever you have. If you have it off of a printout, that works too. But you want to get it to the point where you can kind of get some schmutz on your finger. That's what we're going for. And then all you're going to do is kind of place your picture down and kind of trace and say, okay, here's number 1, and that'll transfer a little bit. And then you'll do, here's number 2, number 3, number 4, and you get the idea. So you have all your pieces traced on there, and they're going to be very, very light, so you may want to darken them up. And then you'll go through and Exacto Blade those out. You'll have all your pieces, you'll paint all your pieces, you'll glue all your pieces, and then you'll be done. What's that? Then you're going to end up teeny tiny little pieces, and that's okay. That's okay. All right, so that's the relief, people. If you're doing 3D, you're doing basically the exact same thing. Like I said, think about carbon transferring, and you're not wrong. There are some pieces, especially with the 3D guys, there are some pieces that are like microscopic. either A, ignore them, or B, just freehand them later on. Nobody's going to care if it's not a perfect circle, right? We're cutting with cardboard, let's be honest, right? We're working with what we got, you know? But if it's something like the size of this number 1 right here, that's a pretty decent size right there. You know, you can easily cut that out. Maybe even something half that size. If it's much smaller than about what you see right here, this kind of half of the size right there, if it's much smaller than maybe like a dime, I wouldn't bother cutting it out. I just wouldn't bother at all. And or if you really need it, then just freehand it. You know what I mean? But don't worry, if it's smaller than a dime, it's just, I mean, it's cardboard. It's going to be too hard to cut out. All right. So let's say that you are all traced up, you've got everything going on, I've got a big stack of cardboard off in the corner. Help yourself to as much or as little as you'd like to. Please, I will ask you this, be economical with your cardboard usage. That is literally everything that I have. So for example, if I was cutting out, let's say my cat head here, right? I'm not going to do like square number 1, cut it out like a hole, and then just throw away the rest of this paper, or the cardboard, right? Try to fit, you know, number 2, and try to like squeeze things together. Use all parts of the buffalo. Cool? All right. So let's say I've got my cat and I'm ready to cut out my square for my cat. Okay? So here's how you use Exacto Blade properly. First things first is you're going to want to grab a cutting board. You guys have this entire semester been allowed to draw on my desks, and I'm encouraging of it. I don't really like when you draw with pen, but I'll get over it. You can draw whatever the heck you want, and I have magical chemicals that will totally clean off these desks. But you can't cut on my desks. I can't clean that up, right? So do not forget at any time to get a cutting board. I've got a mess load of them here in the drawer right here. I've opened it up, it's ready to go. But for everybody, please grab a cutting board. Okay, cool, awesome, great. There's the cutting boards. Okay, so I've got a cutting board, and literally all this thing is, in case you're wondering, it's basically like a big hunk of rubber, but it is made for cutting on. What's neat about it is that whenever I slice into it, it will actually self-heal, and you'll feel little tiny scars on top of this thing, but they're very, very smooth. You can totally work with it, and they don't break this guy. It's really a great material to use, and they're relatively cheap for what they are. So I'd encourage, if you like doing kind of any Exacto blading, to pick one up. So we're going to use that. Make sure that, of course, your cardboard is on top of your cutting board, because it doesn't make any sense to not have it there. All right, so cardboard is on top of my cutting board, and I'm ready to go. Now what I need is, the Exacto Blade. So these are, their technical word is just a hobby knife. Exacto is actually a name brand, kind of like Kleenex. But this is an Exacto Blade right here, okay? And some of them in the back, I've actually got the little drawer pulled out for you, but they're normally in the art cupboard. And they are basically just a little tiny metal cylinder, little aluminum cylinder right there. The top little nugget right here is actually a little twist. There's a little screw inside of here, and I'll show you why that is. And then finally, you've got the actual pen knife itself, right, the little hobby knife. If for some reason your blade goes dull, ask me first, just so I can kind of test it, because sometimes you think a blade is dull and it's not really. But eventually these blades do go dull, and I've got a whole bunch of extra blades back there as well, and these little tiny tubelets, okay? So, there we go. So here's how this thing works, okay? So, you've got this kind of cylinder, and it is literally a pen knife. It is meant to be held like a pen, right? It's not, there's no magical fancy like grip to it or anything. You're not shanking anyone. It is literally just, it's meant to be held like a pen, okay? Now think about history class, right? Think about like the guillotine, right? Whenever the guillotine comes down and like chops off, right, somebody's head, think about that guillotine, right? It's not actually straight, right? It's not straight. It's actually kind of at a slight angle, the blade itself, as it kind of careens down and cuts off the king's head. The reason for that, does anyone know why that would be at a slight angle like that? What's that?
Because it's cleaner.
Cleaner, perhaps, but why would it be cleaner?
Because if it fell straight on the dude's head, it might like not
Yeah,
kill him.
just like break his
You
neck.
might crush it instead of.
Okay, so my crush, why though? Yeah, go talk.
Because like it would crush it. Because if it falls this way, like slices it
It's
up. If you slice something, you move the knife like that.
Just like a pair of scissors, right? Think about, you guys all have, I lost my scissors. You guys all have used scissors before, right? But you guys also know that while using scissors, I'll grab the kind we have here in the classroom, right? Some scissors are very, very sharp. Some scissors are not very sharp. So this is a really nice pair of scissors. These are quite pointy and sharpy. But again, at the same time, you know I can go like this, and I'm not going to cut myself. Because it's not the blade of the scissor that actually does the cutting. It's the actual kind of pivot point right there as it goes along. See that V shape is getting smaller, smaller and smaller, right? That's the thing that is doing all the cutting right there, that axis right there. So using this penknife, we want to simulate that angle of attack, right? And if you notice, again, it's meant to be held at a normal angle. And if you notice, if you hold your hand kind of like you would like a pencil, right? Look, it magically goes at that 45-degree angle. It is cut just at that precise angle right there, ready to go. Okay? So all of that is good for you. So again, don't attack the paper. Just kind of hold it like you would gingerly. You'll be fine. Yes, these are knives. Yes, they can cut you. Yes, somebody will get cut at some point. I got Band-Aids. Don't worry, you'll be fine. If you do get cut, please go and rinse out your hand. Use soap and water, the whole shebang, the stuff Mom taught you, and then I'll give you a Band-Aid. It'll be great. You're not going to lose a finger. But at the same time, be careful. Okay? All right. So here's how it works. I'm going to tilt this camera real quick. All right. So here we go. So again, just to reiterate, cutting board is down. I've got my lines ready to go, okay? So here's how it's gonna work. I'm gonna go ahead and take my knife, right? Hold it comfortably. I'm gonna find kind of my point, right? So there's kind of a nice right angle right here. I'm gonna find my point and I'm gonna kind of jab it in. Okay, all right. Okay, there you go. So it's inside, ready to go. And again, I'm just kind of holding my hand comfortably. I am not I'm not dragging the knife. I'm letting the knife do the work. And all I'm gonna do is kind of pull it down, kind of slowly, but you'll get it. And you'll get a feel for this. And away it goes. Okay? And you'll feel as it cuts through. Now, depending on the material that you're cutting, in our case we're using cardboard. It should cut through relatively easy. Cardboard is not a great material. If you're using really high quality like matte board, the stuff that you use to frame in a picture, if you ever have that like white board around like a photograph or something, that's matte board. That stuff is extra thick. If you ever have something that's extra thick, instead of forcing your blade through it, right? Just literally do like 1, 2, 3. Just do a couple passes. And it will slowly but surely kind of separate, right? And again, some of this cardboard is thicker than others. Truly, do not just stab into it and kind of like, don't drag your pen, right? Do a couple clean slices and you'll be fine, okay? All right, now the big key is this. Yes, it's a penknife, and yes, you can get curves with it. That being said, I want you to think more about kind of angles of attack, right? So I'm doing a 90-degree angle right here for this box. So I'm going to literally pick up and turn my paper around so I can come at it at a different angle. Notice I'm going to do a couple clean, nice light cuts, right? I'm going to do the same thing again, making sure that my cutting board is underneath. A couple clean, nice lines, and one last go. Kind of a stab, slice, and go. Now, here's the thing. As I'm cutting, notice, I am really, really cautious as to where my hand is, right? And I don't mean the hand holding the knife. This guy's super protected. He's got the knife, right? But, as we're going along, right, do not, under any circumstances, put your thumb here. It is in the path, and I promise you, it will really, really, really hurt, right? Watch that thumb, okay? So just kind of pull him in or kind of turn your hand around. You'll be all right. Think about it this way. If it makes any sense, and this sounds kind of silly to think about or say out loud, but if you put your finger on top of the blade, again, I'm not saying to do this. I'm just saying think about the logic, right? This finger is really safe because the bad part of the blade is underneath, right? If you put your hand in front of the blade like this as they're dragging down, that's okay. But if you're in the path, inevitably something bad is going to happen, okay? Remember that this cardboard is corrugated. We talked about that yesterday, right? It's that, this stuff here, right? This corrugation, this kind of little bit here. So think about the blade itself, what it's actually going on. As the blade cuts through this, right, it is literally going pop, 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 pop. It's kind of going on those little hurdles, right? Now imagine for some particular reason, who knows why, just magic, right? As you're going along, one of them get kind of stuck. Maybe there's a pebble in there, I don't know. And you're like, come on. Come on, come on, come on, and you, right? It is very easy to, again, kind of pull in a bad direction, all right? Please be very, very careful as to where your other hand is, assuming that you have one. Okay. So, I've cut through. I'm just going to go ahead now, kind of pop this guy out. I'll zoom back out here. There you go. Ta-da. Now, With your cardboard, you might want to go through and kind of clean it up a little bit. Oops. Go back in there and kind of clean him up. Okay, looking good? All right, so there's your big hole. There's my piece ready to go. Everything's looking grand. And I would go through and kind of finish that up from there. So again, you're going to be cutting out a whole bunch of different slabs of this cardboard, right? Again, I would highly encourage, if you're doing the relief, still number your piece, right? So I'm going to look back at my Exacto here. Okay, it looks like this piece is in fact number 1. Good to go, so now I can't forget, right? And I'm ready to go. You will not be done cutting today. If you're doing the relief, you're probably going to get really close. You may finish today, maybe. But again, take your time transferring. If you're doing the 3D, you're totally not going to be done cutting today. But again, remember that they have to paint. You don't have to. So think about that trade-off, right? If you are doing the 3D and you'd like to paint, you're welcome to, but you don't have to. Your mission is to make a big 3D model. Their mission is to make a flat painted relief. Ribbit, ribbit. Good? Cool. Awesome. So that all being said, I'm going to make a couple last notes real quick, and then I'll let you guys kind of go on your way.